Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. This week we were touring the Middle East. We went from Turkey to Iraq to the Gulf states to Israel to Lebanon. We touched a lot of different countries.
Actually quite a bit.
We talked about a lot of different stuff. As we always like to say, we like to focus on something. And this week, it's very obvious we focused on Islam and Judaism. And those were the two major, defining moments of this week when we went through a lot of our books. And it was a lot of the themes of the books that we read.
It really just made sense. We obviously always study about culture and about geography and climate and things like that. But, these, like you say, these are just recurring themes that kind of kept coming up. And we thought it was a really good time to try to address it. We have some great books in our household dealing with different world religions. And it was a good place to start and kind of start discussing this.
So we start light with a little girl named Yasmin.
Okay.
Well, I read this one. You read this one.
All right. So about Yasmin. So Yasmin is a Pakistani American family.
Yes.
Now, we studied Pakistan when we studied India and Nepal a few weeks back.
Yep.
I did not realize that when Torchlight went ahead and did the Middle East, they put Yasmin in there because they were bringing Pakistan into a study of the Middle East. I did not know this. So, we read Yasmin and Yasmin in Charge. One of the things that I think works pretty well is because it is it is in the Islamic Middle Eastern culture. Mm-hmm. It didn't really, nothing I read anyway, was specifically Pakistani. Yeah. So I think it's okay. I am going to go ahead and add these books into our video about Pakistan because that would be really good to read. But I just want to let you know of this little mismatch that Torchlight puts it there, assuming that you're going to study Pakistan is part of the Middle East, and I'm guessing that's because of religious and cultural similarities to many of the countries. So, that disclaimer being made, Yasmin and Yasmin in Charge are two.
Yasmin would not care as much. She has too many things she's worried about, like getting lost at the farmer's market, doing art projects for school,
being in charge of her class,
doing construction projects. It's a wonderful, basically every book is a collection of short stories.
And they're really early chapter books. I mean, you can see nice big words. You might even be able to have your learner read some of this. Our learner was reluctant to, but you could. And they're all different stories. And of course they, it's set in the United States, but it uses a lot of, there's a lot of cultural stuff there where, it's like she's throwing a party and it's the clothes she's going to wear and the food that they're going to make for all her relatives and things. And so I loved this. I love these kind of, blank American stories, Pakistani American stories, or Asian American stories, whatever, because our child can really relate because there's pieces in there that she totally, she can see and she's familiar with. And then there's other pieces that she can really grab onto and go, wait a minute, why are they dressing that way? Or why do they eat that food? And we can really talk about it more. It's not everything is from another country. So I really like this. These are great. I think there's a few more in this Yasmin series. Yep. Our daughter could have listened to Yasmin all day long. She loved it.
Really good too with the cultural, American stories where you have this kind of a multicultural experience, and she has that in her classes that she's at with our parent partnership. If you check about that on our podcast, she can identify with that. She has students from China, and she has students from Southeast Asia, and she really identifies with the fact that these children are in America and they may have a little bit of cultural differences. She's always asking those type of questions, and so stories like this I think are really that really touch to her experience in her life, seeing her friends that are sharing that experience.
Yeah, and saying just because they go to my parent partnership class, maybe at home they have different traditions than we do.
Exactly.
And that's pretty cool. And so these books are great. We own these ones, and I'm glad that we bought them. I think that they're just perfect.
Absolutely. So Usborne Illustrated Arabian Nights.
So for Torchlight, there's the Middle East, and then there's the Middle East and Israel. So they have multiple weeks. So I believe it's for the week that they do Israel, the book is like Missy Pigglewiggle. It has nothing to actually do with the country. So we went ahead and bought the Usborne Illustrated Arabian Nights, and it's just a bunch of kind of folktale type stories. Obviously, they're adaptations from the Arabian Nights. They're done in a really great way. There's good illustrations.
Big font.
Usborne. You can't go wrong. Yeah. But it's got probably 10 or so stories in it. It's a pretty thick book. Our daughter really enjoyed it. We didn't finish all the stories, but I thought it was a good kind of overall, if you want more fairy tale, folktale type this was really good.
Yeah, absolutely great. Next.
Oh, he dropped a book, y'all. I'm not going to edit for this because we don't have time to edit because we're busy parents. You're busy parents too.
Snow in Jerusalem.
So there is a week in Torchlight for the Middle East and Israel, and this is the book.
Absolutely.
For that.
Wonderful story. Maybe
I'll
you
show
flip through it.
I will van it for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful story about two boys from two different cultures. So an Islamic boy and a Jewish boy, and they're competing with this beautiful white cat. This cat keeps coming back and forth between their districts and their quarters. And the boys end up having to go look for the cat because they're worried that the cat hasn't come back. And they end up stumbling together, and they begin to fight and argue about who owns the cat and where's the cat going. And then the cat begins to leave, and they're chasing the cat, and there ends in this really great discovery that, the cat had kittens, and now they have to decide peacefully how to divvy up the kittens. And it was just a great allegory for
it snowed.
And then at the end it snowed in Jerusalem. And it was just a really sweet story. Very beautiful drawings. Nice kind of allegory towards the conflicts in that region. But I liked this story from just the playful aspect, seeing the different quarters. My daughter was able to ask about, well, what do you mean by quarters and sections of the town and stuff like that. And so that was confusing to her because she's not used to the historical age of some of these locations that we were talking about. For her, she sees our town, it's, strip malls and things like that, and it's very modern and new. And to understand that there's like a weight to the history of certain areas, and we had to talk a little bit about that. And so this book was able to kind of open up that discussion.
There were a number of books about somebody from somebody who was Islamic and somebody who was Jewish, and how they would have to kind of come together and overcome their differences. Overcome their differences was a big theme in a number of books that we read.
Yeah, we read I think about 4 of those.
Right.
We're only going to showcase
this
one.
This was the best one, so we just wanted to talk about this one. But we thought it was important to do at least one book on that, and build your library. As always, they have great selections. Did a good job with this book.
Absolutely. Snow in Jerusalem is a really good choice. Next we'll go to Istanbul in Turkey. The Song of the Old City.
Love the illustrations.
Illustrations of this one of the better books that we've read. Maybe one other might be a little bit better this week, but the illustrations are just top notch in this. And basically, it's just the story of a girl going through the town and all the various small cultural aspects that the food, the drink, the smells, the experiences, the people, the music, and it's just kind of like weaves the whole city as this giant tapestry. And it was a really cool thing for us to be able to dive into Google Maps views of going around the city and talking about the history of it. It used to be Roman, then it became Byzantine, it became Ottoman, and now it's Turkey. And so you get to go through this long history of this one of the epic cities of the world. And so I loved it. It was a nice touchstone into that. She really enjoyed it. The art's beautiful. If your learner finds something that they're super interested in, like the really strong tea or the pretzels or whatever, the music, you can easily cut off into a direction there and go to YouTube and see something that can carry their interest.
I think this is the only book that we read specifically about Turkey.
Yep.
But it was really good.
Absolutely. All right, Joao makes a wish. I love the drawings in this one.
The drawings are so good.
They're so good. Basically, it's a folktale of a poor man who's going along the road, stumbles and trips and falls, and finds a magic wand. And that magic wand has the ability to grant wishes that he may have. But every time he has the wand won't leave his hand, and he keeps asking for wishes. And every time it gives him the worst thing about that wish. His shoes he loses his shoes, or his clothes become tattered, or he gets captured by the Sultan's men, and then he curses the Sultan, and eventually he realizes that the wand was turned backwards. And so he had to turn the wand around, and then he was able to solve his problems. But the greedy Sultan stole his wand. But Joao never bothered to tell him to turn the wand the other way. And so eventually the Sultan winds up on his patukis in the desert after trying to wish too many things for himself. So really great allegory for materialism and vanity, and the pushing the idea of humility and all that type of stuff. I really love these stories. This was a great story in that, and I think it's just playful, and the drawings are top notch.
Yeah, our daughter really liked it.
Absolutely. Next, touching into UAE with Dubai, so Jamal's journey. Jamal, you think was a boy? Nope, it's the camel. So a story about a young camel who's part of this troop of people moving through the desert who are trying to get to the market, and I think Dubai. And basically he gets lost along the way, and he has to wander through the desert. And while you wander through the desert, you talk about the beautiful landscapes, the creatures that are there, the animals, the survival with the snowstorm, the sandstorms. A lot of great things there. And then talks a little bit about falconry, and my daughter was a little interested in what that might be. And so we, again, very easy to just kind of shoot off in that direction. So we were able to do that. And ultimately Jamal makes his way home and gets back into the city. And a young boy was basically his tender. And so it was a story about a young camel and a young boy. So they're really, really great. A lot of little things that you can immediately shoot off and enjoy. I think this was the most playful of the stories that we had this week. So absolutely put it in your rotation. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to screw this one. Ishaq.
A boy who loved violin.
Who loved violin.
This is the tale about an Israeli boy. He has a disability. He's not able to walk. When he finally does learn to walk, he uses braces. He ends up discovering a love of the violin, and he decides to play, and he's wonderful, of course. But he has to play sitting down, and this was at a time when orchestras did not sit down to play, and so they thought that he couldn't make the same kind of beautiful music by sitting that other people could do standing. So always a story of overcoming adversity, you know, that you can do anything if you believe and you have passion and all those great things. It's a true story, so we thought it was a really great book for Israel.
Absolutely, and our daughter might be getting into fiddle and violin, so
we're trying.
Priming that pump. Silent music.
I really like the art in this one. This is Silent Music, Story of Baghdad. This is one where, it was funny, one of my dad's criticisms when he was helping us with homeschool one of the weeks when they visited here was that they didn't talk about the fact that these folks spoke a different language and used a different writing system. We were studying China when they were here. And so this is one that actually highlights how different the Arabic alphabet is and writing, and so it has lots of examples, and it translates and puts the letters above them so you can read, and in the end it talks about a little bit about war, very kind of overhead, very high level, and just says how much easier it is to spell war than it is to spell peace, and how we have to keep working to spell peace. And it was really good. The artwork is really great. So if you want to get a little bit of the fact that Arabic writing is so different, this is just a fantastic way for my daughter was amazed. She's like, that's how do they read that? And it's like that's what it is to be different cultures and different languages. And so it was a really good exposure. So I like this book.
Absolutely. Next we have Dueling Books.
Yes, they're
Zaha
both
Hadid.
about Zaha Hadid, which is an architect. So the world is not a rectangle, and this one is Building Zaha.
We liked this one, I think, better than this one.
No. Opposite way. We liked this one better than this one. Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Basically, this one, the world is a rectangle, is a little bit better for younger readers. There's less words. It's more visuals and things. Whereas we as adults, and our daughter too, liked this Building Zaha book.
Talks more about her life and her struggles.
It gave more information. So this is lower on information and more about imagery, and this is more about information.
You described it as almost poetic in some
It
respects.
is almost poetic. So I think if you have a really young child and you're doing this, I would maybe choose The World Is Not a Rectangle. And if you're doing this with a 6-7-year-old, I would choose Building Zaha.
Okay.
But they were both good, and they're both a real life story. I don't remember what country she was from. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe Saudi Arabia?
Don't know.
I'm sorry.
We'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes.
So many books, guys.
Yeah, we can't remember. We really read a lot.
Sammy and the Times of the Troubles.
Okay, so this is a book. I think this might have been a recommendation from Build Your Library. Maybe it's an extra book. Somebody told me to buy this one because I did buy it. This is about a little boy during the Civil War in Lebanon. And this just kind of tells what it's like that his family has to live in the basement for the times when there are troubles, and then they can go back up, and then they play in the street. And the fort that he built's been destroyed; it's no longer there. And just a little bit about a child's life in war. And then we have another one.
Yeah, My Name is Bana. Same idea. She's coming from the Civil War in Lebanon. A girl who has to flee, come to the United States. It's kind of told through an allegory of a tree. Really, really beautiful story about the family and struggle, and the struggle to come to somewhere new and to fit in and identify and be yourself and that thing. And I liked this one. This one was really emotional.
You know, they're
you read
both,
this one.
Yeah, they're both good. We were thinking this one might be better for a bit of a younger reader, and this one might be better for an older one. Our daughter at 6.5, I think this was a little bit too advanced. This would be better if she were 7, maybe. This is a little bit more stark and realistic about what it's like to be a child living through war. So, not that there's any imagery or anything. There's nothing, there's no drawings or anything that are disturbing, but it's a little bit more gritty than this one. So just kind of, pick what would be best for your learner. But these are both about the Lebanese Civil War. So
absolutely.
And the only books we read about Lebanon, unfortunately.
Yep. Next one, Asnat and Her Dove. Story of the first female rabbi.
Right. This is a really good one. I really like this. And I think she established the first yeshiva that women could study at. Is that right?
But she was also the head of it, and I think it was centered in Baghdad, I think.
Yeah, I want to say.
Yeah. So basically, she
is it Baghdad?
Yeah, I think it is. And she basically is brought into basically a yeshiva, I think it is.
Yeah, her father runs it.
Her father runs it, yeah. And eventually he passes on, but she is so learned and so cultured. He taught her so much that the school basically said, "We need you to run this school," and how that broke the cultural expectations, and then how she succeeded, and ultimately there's like kind of a miracle associated to her, and people actually kind of pilgrimage to that area in order to honor her, the potential miracle that she was part of. I think she rescued a burning a library with books and old Torah books that she was able to save because her presence was there and it warded off the fire. So really interesting story.
I think it's maybe 1500s.
1500s, I think,
it's quite old.
Yeah, about 500 years ago. So really interesting story. Liked it a lot. The drawings were really, really cool, and our daughter liked it. And it was a little bit of that question of like, well, why couldn't she be a rabbi? And so we had to talk a little bit about that. So.
Yeah,
absolutely. Nasruddin. This was I think our favorite.
I really liked this one.
I love this book. The first one, the drawings are absolutely beautiful. It's a folk tale about a young boy and a father who go to the market like every week, and every time they go, the boy hears something that somebody says that's kind of critical of the family or about him and his father, and he kind of takes that to heart, and he runs home and he doesn't want to continue with his father, and his father is very patient, ignores what the people say, and then moves on, but has to do it without his son because his son is kind of scared of what other people think. And each week he suggests to his father to arrive to the market in a different way, and every single time the one he chose, somebody makes fun of that, and eventually has to come to grips with, don't listen to what other people say, be your own person. Really great messages. Really, I thought it was done, like that kind of story can be kind of heavy-handed, but this was just done such a beautiful way, and the drawings are absolutely gorgeous.
I think our daughter really got something out of this about just not letting other people and what they have to say influence what you do. Yeah, I think it was a really good story for that reason.
Absolutely. All right, Miriam's Magic.
Yes, this is the story of, I believe she's from Iran, Iranian mathematician, and this is her true story, and it was just great. I love stories about, this one was fun because she didn't like math until she got to geometry, and then she discovered, how amazing math could be, and some of her formulas and things helped, it had a huge influence on the world of mathematics. They helped a space program and all these things. And they actually talked about all of the different areas of science that were positively impacted by her. And she did die young of cancer. So it was a little bit of a sad ending for our daughter to read about. But I love reading about stories about women doing great things, especially since we have girls. And I think that might have been the only story we read about Iran, except for this book.
This is How We Do It.
Right, and so
basically it follows about 7 different countries. So if you have one of these countries, Peru, Japan, Iran, Russia, India, Italy, and Uganda, if you touch on one of those countries, you want to probably use this book. Basically, they walk you through all the various different cultural aspects. So how they sleep, what do they eat, where do they go to school, how do they work, how do they play, and it just shows you what each culture does. Gives you a little bit of a description of that, their language. The clothes they wear and how that's all different, how they play. It just talks about all the aspects of their lives from all these different snapshots. And every single section tells you all 7 countries, and it will show you examples of each one of those. I really like it. We've checked this book out a couple times.
Yeah, we
now.
check it out whenever
every time there's a country coming up.
When we hit a country that's covered in this book, we check it out, and then we go through it, and we only look at that picture on each page for the country that we're studying. Our daughter loves these type of books. This is a lot like a Children Like Me or Living in ... whatever country, the early reader books. These are those ones where our daughter can really connect with what it's like to be a child in that country through the food and the play and what they go, where they go to school, what they wear.
She learns about contrasting about what she does and what her experiences are. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
This is a really good book. So yeah, it covers 7 countries only. So we like this as a checkout from the library if your library has it. Otherwise, if you can get it used, it would be a good pickup because I think it's done really well.
It hits every major, I think, continent except North America. So if you're going to touch on each one of those, it's good for at least those, except Antarctica. They ignore us in Antarctica. Whatever. Next, after those were all the books we had. So next we went into a little bit of movie. Now there's so many great selections like Aladdin that you could choose. We're just not going to do it. We just kind of not do Aladdin. We got to try to do something else. So we got a movie called Bilal.
A New Breed of Hero. So
now, this is probably not for youngins. There's a lot of violence.
Yeah, so we're real. We're talking about the stuff that we did, not just if we recommend it necessarily. I'm on the fence about this one. So this one is about Bilal and his sister who are slaves, and they end up Bilal is what he was supposed to be, like the right hand man to Muhammad.
Yeah, he was. We looked up the guy on Wikipedia.
This is a true story.
Yeah, true story. We read a little bit about him, but they didn't talk any about the origins of Islam. It was really just about his life and his story.
Yeah, they didn't talk about Muhammad. They didn't talk about Islam really.
But
they
you
did
could
talk
see
about
a little bit of that.
They did talk about how the people who had enslaved them, that tribe or whatever it was, that they believed in all these different like gods in tokens or whatever, idols.
Yes.
And how there was one God, and then but they didn't talk about that too much. This was mostly about him kind of overcoming his situation. But there was a lot of violence, and it's animated still, but there was a lot of there was a whipping, and they didn't actually show any blood, but
it's a lot of like fighting battle scenes and stuff, and I don't know if it was necessarily appropriate for younger learners, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah, I would say maybe if your learner is 8 or 9, or or maybe even older, 9 or 10. Yeah. I think it was a bit much for our learner. I thought it was going to be okay, but then I got it, and then I looked, and it was like PG-13. I didn't realize that until after we finished. I was like, this was a really harsh animated movie, and I just didn't.
The animation, the animation kind of had. I don't know if I liked it.
It was like a video game.
It had
feel.
Video game feel, but it also was very cinematic, and I don't know if I liked it or not. It was just a little different, but. If you want to try something different, you can try.
Yeah, just be aware that it's a bit violent. So I really wouldn't do it for a young learner. The lights came back on. So we made it to 9:30.
She told me it wasn't going to happen.
No, I said we weren't going to make it to 9:30, but we ended up being here at oh my gosh, look at 9:30.
All right.
So we'll try to wrap up, but basically
we're going to move on to food.
Basically,
give me some Jeopardy music. I dropped something.
Basically, I would say for the movie, I don't think that we would recommend this one. Please put something in the comments if you have a movie or a show to recommend. A lot of the animated things and other movies that we found around the Middle East were just too. They were violent. They were too old. So we're on the hunt for something good to watch for this area of the world. So let us know.
Prince of Egypt is another option as well.
But again, it's that one. This one was very lightly religious. That is so religious.
But if you don't want the violence aspect, there's always something to fall back if you don't want to just do the traditional Aladdin.
Kind of violence too. I mean, it's all kind of violent. I don't have a good answer for this one, but we would love to hear.
We need Toy Story for the Middle East. So
we would love to hear if you have a good suggestion. Yeah. So please let us know if you've heard of something that would be good to use, and we'll include it in our resource guide for other families.
Absolutely. Next, we went on to food. We didn't make anything specifically. We followed a recipe. We've been into HelloFresh, not an ad.
No, it's just easy. We don't have to think about it.
She's working on a play. I've got 2 kids. We got school. Sometimes we need to get meals brought into the house for us that we can make really quick. We started playing around with HelloFresh. Whatever. Not an ad. Not an ad.
No, we get nothing.
Not an ad. HelloFresh.
Yeah, we get nothing from them. But we started using it.
We liked it, and then we saw the up and coming week we were going to be in the Middle East, and we saw that there was a Middle Eastern chickpea bowl, and so we got it.
And so that's what we did.
Oh.
So we made this from HelloFresh, and we really enjoyed it. So we're showing you mostly because you could make something like this. This was chickpeas,
rice,
and
roasted tomatoes, a little bit of a sauce. You made wonderful flatbread that went with it.
Yeah,
I ate way too much of this.
It was really quite good. So something like this, our kids even really liked it because the chickpeas were actually baked on a sheet pan with the cherry tomatoes, and
the spices in them were really good. Yeah. Anyway, this was really good.
Something like this. I'm sorry that we phoned it in this week.
I don't think this is actually the people like this. This is something new. This
Well,
isn't some rando recipe off of Babish. This is something that they can go do.
I usually am looking recipes up, right? Or I use our global cooking book to come up with something. And this week we just didn't have time, honestly, and so we outsourced. We outsourced to HelloFresh.
We made a couple mouse clicks and helped ourselves. So why don't you help yourself and maybe try HelloFresh? Not an ad.
Why are you even reading it? We get no money for this.
I know, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day they'll see us and be like, yes. No. Not
Anyway,
at all.
That was a little bit of a, hey, this is a little bit more slapsticky today.
This is a little bit of humor today.
What's going on?
You know why? Because it's
late.
And our daughter was sick last night. We were up all night, so forgive us for being a little long-winded. And if you stayed around this long, thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're the real heroes.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. That was the Middle East. We had a good time. And now our monitor's dying. So we're dying too. We're out of here. We'll see you next week.